Littleton, and the severity of the shake here was more substantial than the main shock because the earthquake was so shallow and so close to Christchurch.
How long before you know the facts?
Well, at the moment, the seismologists at GNS are working on locating the earthquake. Sometimes these things can be messy affairs with lots of waves arriving at different times and things like that. So this will be something that gets pinpointed over the next hours. And but I mean, at the moment, I think the epicenter is located to within a few kilometers, and so we know generally the magnitude and the location. And that's been stated already. Given that it may well have been part of the fault, or you don't know if you confirm it was part of the fault, could it have been predicted to some degree? Definitely not. We know that a lot of big earthquakes in the past, some of the California earthquakes, for instance, have triggered earthquakes on other faults in the area. So when we have a big earthquake like this, it changes the crust, the stress field in the crust, and can load up other fault systems. And it's certainly not unprecedented. There's been series of earthquakes, sort of what we would call triggered earthquakes in the past several times. So it's not surprising from that perspective, but we never know because every system behaves differently to some degree. And yeah, I think documenting where these things are is a critical part of the story. But because we don't actually know the stress state of those structures before they got loaded up, we can't actually can't predict earthquakes per se. I know that these are still early days, but how then, given that we don't know, what do you do about Christchurch? When do you rebuild? How widely do you rebuild? Who makes those decisions given we know so little? Well, I think there's two important points. Number one, you know, this earthquake occurred many months after the main shock, and that sort of time lag can vary from months to years. I mean, you can get earthquakes, large earthquakes in an area years after a significant earthquake. And the other thing is that this earthquake will have its own aftershock sequence. So we felt that today. We felt that minutes to hours after that big earthquake today. We felt a whole bunch of smaller but fairly frequent earthquakes, and those are most likely earthquakes that are aftershocks from that event which occurred today. So we've got the story started again, I think, in some respects, in terms of the aftershocks. And just very quickly, this is likely to go on for some days, weeks, if not months. Yeah, I think, like I said, it's a smaller earthquake, so the duration of large earthquakes should again fall off with time. But it's difficult to predict. But I think it's something that we should brace ourselves for, that we're going to feel both aftershocks from this earthquake, this one just from today, as well as the continued aftershocks from the 7.1 that we had in September. So those things interact, and yeah, we can certainly expect that sort of thing for 4 months. Mark, I appreciate your time very much. Dr. Mark Quigley in Christchurch from Canterbury University. All right, we're taking you back to Christchurch now. I'm joined now by my colleague Simon Dallow, who is there and has been at a media briefing. Simon, what's the latest you can tell us?
You want me looking at you? Or?
Sorry, Greg, go again.
What's the latest you can tell us from down there, Simon?
Oh, Greg, you've just we had a few briefings in the last half hour from both Mayor Bob Parker and also from Police Commissioner Howard Broad. Of course, we joined you with. Right now with me is the Chief Executive of Canterbury District Health Board, David Mates. David, your immediate priorities right now?
Ensuring that we've got safe care being provided. Obviously, it's been a really, really busy day. The emergency department has been flat out dealing with trauma and walking wounded. We've been dealing with facilities without power and water. But again, right across the Canterbury health system, we've had primary care responding and providing a lot of urgent frontline care. And we've been connecting with all of the private hospitals. We've transferred about 50 patients out of Christchurch Hospital to Burwood and Princess Margaret and Southern Cross today as a precautionary measure. And we also have at least 4 of the major aged residential care centres in Christchurch that are severely damaged, and we're going to need to be taking stock of those tomorrow relative to how we may need to handle or house a number of elderly that may be displaced.
Your immediate priority, coming back from the triage centres, what sort of injuries are we encountering?
A number of spinal injuries and obviously broken bones and lacerations. We're also seeing a lot of chest pains and heart attacks presenting as well. Our intensive care unit is chocker, and we have just transferred eight people, 2 children and 6 adults out of Canterbury to other intensive care units around the country, mainly Auckland, but also Waikato and Kaplan Coast.
Are the hospitals here pretty much full at the moment?
No, we've reduced capacity in Christchurch Hospital, and again we're making space for what will probably be a real influx of patients over the next few days. We still have probably quite a bit of trauma to to handle, and obviously we'll be dealing with some major crush and spinal injuries over the next couple of days as well.
Are the numbers decreasing yet, or are you still seeing arrivals and admissions?
It's been pretty busy. There have been obviously peaks and troughs through that, but leaving Christchurch Hospital half an hour ago, it's still very, very busy in there.
Do you have overnight concerns? Is there anything specific to the night?
The major concerns have been staffing, and we have got staff from Ashburton and also a number of other district health boards are coming into Canterbury. We're adequately staffed tonight, but we're going to be under quite a bit of pressure over the next few days. But again, we have staff coming down from North Island DHBs and also across the South Island.
We've heard from the Mayor and the Police Commissioner and District Commander. What would you like to say to the people of Christchurch who are listening and watching tonight?
I think the first major bit is really people keeping themselves safe, looking after their neighbours, being very conscious that water and sewage is going to be a major issue for this community for the period of time, and boiling water. Again, looking after the neighbours, looking after the elderly, and really just taking care of yourselves. We're in for a long journey.
Indeed. You mentioned the crush nature of injuries, the trauma that you're experiencing now. The secondary potential could be for what sort of thing? Waterborne illnesses?
Yes, what we've seen after September, as well as a lot of chest pains, a lot of heart attacks, and the one thing we don't want to see happening is waterborne illnesses starting to present themselves.
There's an even greater risk of that this time, isn't there, because of the nature of the reticulation damage?
Absolutely, and certainly at the moment, across the city, access to fresh water is very limited. And certainly in all of our hospital facilities at the moment, water is problematic. We don't have water for flushing toilets and drinking water, so we're on bottled water. But that's an issue that we'll continue to deal with over the next few days.
Speaking of the next few days, then, what are the sort of challenges you expect to be facing?
Continuing to provide adequate staffing to deal with the type of injuries that we're likely to be dealing with. We're going to need to continue to assess particularly intensive care patients that may need to be transferred elsewhere, and continuing to look at getting staffing into a sustainable basis, because staff, like the rest of the community, are absolutely shattered. We've had a number of staff injured today, and also just the stress that sits around sustaining 24-hour services is going to be a challenge for us, and that's where we're needing to coordinate very closely with other health authorities around the country. You
mentioned the stress on the services. Of course, people have frazzled nerves here as well. There'll be mental health issues too?
We're going to see a lot more anxiety presenting itself in the community, and again, this is a traumatic event. It is normal and natural to feel traumatised, fear, tears, and those sort of things. And the best way for dealing with that, again, is talking about it and expressing yourself with with friends and family.
So you're emphasising tolerance and community coming together and assisting each other?
Yeah, absolute tolerance and the community coming together, and that's again one of the real strengths of Canterbury. And again, the way all of the different agencies have again connected and responded, it has largely been a seamless response. And again, we've got some really big challenges still ahead of us.
You do indeed. We wish you all the best, and you get on your way and get onto them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David Mates, CEO of Canterbury District Health Board there, Greg.
Simon, I know you and a number of journalists who are there aren't from Christchurch. A slightly unique perspective in that you were there at the last quake in September. You've arrived there this afternoon. Give us a comparison. I think it's already obvious the answer we're going to get, but you can give us a sort of a first-hand comparison, just the difference between Christchurch September and today.
Well, I would say, Greg, that of course this time around it's the anxiety factor. People weren't expecting it last time and it was novel. Now it's worn on over time. There's been a lot of stress and there has been an awful amount of that rebuilding, and this time around it's just triggered people again. Perhaps a better person to answer that would be Mayor Bob Parker, who's just joined me again. Bob, I've just been asked the comparisons between people now versus September the 4th.
In terms of how people are feeling
things,
this is even worse. The damage that we're seeing in the central city area in particular is bad, and some of our suburban areas that got off relatively lightly last time seem to have borne the brunt of damage. Now, we haven't had a lot of reports of significant injuries from those areas at the moment, but I'm expecting some reports to come through, and at this early stage there's a lot of activity taking place dispersed around the city and pulling that information together, which is important to us, but it's not the first priority at the moment. It's to get people out, and on that front I've actually got some positive news. Just spoke to one of the rescue crews that have come in, and they've been able to tell me unofficially at this stage that around about 120 people have been pulled from buildings or from rubble, or some cases stuck on upper floors of buildings. So that in the midst of all of this turmoil and tragedy, it's great to know that our teams that are out there working very, very hard have got 120 souls back to safety.
And that is great news indeed. Last time, of course, it was just property, ultimately, we all found out.
That was.
After late. This time, of course, it's more about people.
It's absolutely all about people, and I think that the trauma that we've suffered is measured, if you like, by the number of vehicles that are on the roads leading out of the city tonight. A lot of people have decided to drive south or north, or in some cases towards the west, to get away from what they perceive quite realistically to be, I think, the danger of aftershocks continuing. So I think that's a sensible move. I'm not encouraging people to leave their houses and go on the roads, but for those people who have taken that decision, it's not a bad thing to have done. But what we are saying to people now is please stay in your homes. Please don't go out on the roads. Those roads are our lifelines. We're stretched to the limit. Every single ambulance is out there tonight, and they need to move quickly and get people back to the hospitals.
Stay out of the city, get out of the way, look after each other. Thank you very much, Mayor Bob Parker.
Very simple message, but it's a very important one. Okay.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Mayor Bob Parker.
Simon, thank you so much for that. Simon Dello with Christchurch Mayor Bob Parker. We head now back to a place that this evening sort of become, in some ways, the central meeting point for a lot of the very dazed and confused but grateful survivors of the quake, Hagley Park, and Tom McRae, who has been there throughout the afternoon. Tom, what can you tell us is the latest there?
Well, the latest is that everyone has pretty much moved inside now, although before that happened there was a good hour or so where it was just pouring with rain and people were stuck outside, because the main thing that held people from getting in here was the liquefaction. They've put a floor down, but underneath it is huge levels of liquefaction, so they've done an incredible job just to get that down. This was going to be the Ellerslie Flower Show. Thank God for timing, I guess, because they've had this massive structure already in place. Power was already set up here. The lighting was already in. So I guess that is one good thing that has happened here tonight. People are slowly queuing up for hot meals, for water. They've got more portaloos in here now, and people are sort of bunking down with the few blankets they've been able to find for what will be a long night.
Idea of the mood in there. When we last spoke to you, you were outside. You were actually in Hagley Park. It was starting to rain. What's the mood there now amongst the people you've spoken with?
Well, it's quite calm actually. Now that they're inside, out of those elements, they've got hot food in their stomach. There's the Kiwi staple, the old mince and cheese pies, they're going around. It's calmed everyone down. They know that they're going to be here tonight. Most of them are warm and dry now, so I guess they're sort of sitting back and just trying to take in the events of the day, really.
Aftershock-wise, there have been 20 aftershocks since that initial quake just before 1 o'clock. Have there been any more this evening? How jumpy are people on that front?
Oh, very, very jumpy. Every time even a small one rumbles through, everyone stops, holds their breath and looks up. and just to see, what's going to happen next. But thankfully there hasn't been any damage here this afternoon, in the last few hours, I should say.